shape us into a Jesus loving, Jesus experiencing, Jesus exalting, Jesus abiding, Jesus obeying, Jesus proclaiming people. Amen. I would like to introduce you to a man named Bruno. Bruno is someone that you may not know, but there's a chance that your kids may know Bruno, your grandkids or great-grandkids might know Bruno. Bruno is from the newest animated movie called Encanto, and what makes Bruno unique is that Bruno has visions of things that are going to happen, and he becomes this outcast in the family, that the family's kind of ashamed of Bruno and embarrassed by Bruno and doesn't really want to associate with Bruno, and so the popular song from the movie is "We Don't Talk About Bruno." And Bruno reminds me of the Old Testament prophets. In many ways, we can look at the Old Testament prophets and we see them as heroes. We see them as kind of celebrities of the scriptures. But if you were to ask the people of Israel during the time of the prophets, they might sing the same song that we don't talk about Bruno. We don't talk about, in this case, Zephaniah. We're going to begin this short series in the book of Zephaniah the prophet and what he has to say to the people of Israel. And for the people of Israel, he joins the ranks of Bruno as that guy that people just don't really want to talk about because he brings a message that isn't always comfortable. A little background on the book of Zephaniah, that it takes place during the reign of Josiah, and that's significant. Josiah reigned from 640 BC to 609 BC, and this is significant because the southern kingdom of Judah is the one kingdom. As the kingdom gets divided between the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, we have the northern kingdom of Israel with its capital Samaria, the southern kingdom of Judah with its capital Jerusalem. The northern kingdom was exiled almost 100 years prior to Zephaniah bringing this word of prophecy in 722 BC. And the reason that Judah is lasting longer than the northern kingdom is because the northern kingdom never once had a godly king. It never once had a godly king that was able to help lead the people to repentance and lead people to obeying the Lord. The southern kingdom did slightly better, but not much, in that the southern kingdom occasionally had a godly king who would try to lead religious reforms. And Josiah is one of those kings. That he tries to do away with all of the pagan altars and the pagan places of worship. But as we're going to find in the book of Zephaniah, that even though Josiah is trying to lead the nation in the direction of godliness, that you can't always legislate spirituality. Because the people are still turning their hearts to pagan gods. And so we come to the book of Zephaniah chapter 1, and we're going to look at the first 9 verses to start with. And what we see in these first 9 verses is God's hatred of evil. God's hatred of evil. In verse 1 it says, "The word of the Lord that came to Zephaniah the son of Cushai, son of Gedaliah, son of Amariah, son of Hezekiah, in the days of Josiah the son of Ammon, king of Judah." And here we're introduced in verse 1 to the word of the Lord. And your translation might have Lord in all capital letters. If it does, not all translations do, but a lot of them do, to indicate that the Hebrew word that's used there is the word Yahweh, which is the name of the covenant God of Israel. This is a personal name of God that was so holy and sacred to the Israelites that they didn't want to pronounce it. And so even as the Hebrew language evolves and you begin to get these little vowel points to help you know how to pronounce a word, when they came to Yahweh, they didn't put vowel points because they didn't want you pronouncing this sacred name of their covenant God. And this name of Yahweh is going to appear just in chapter 1, 15 times in these 18 verses. And there's significance to that. Because Zephaniah and the other prophets are fundamentally bringing a message to God's people saying that you have turned your backs on the God of covenant, on the God who is in a covenant relationship with you. And so verse 2, it says, "I will utterly sweep away everything from the face of the earth, declares the Lord. I will sweep away man and beast. I will sweep away the birds of the heavens and the fish of the sea and the rubble with the wicked. I will cut off mankind from the face of the earth, declares the Lord." I almost imagine if you're an Israelite living in Judah at this time and Zephaniah comes out of the gates with this word of prophecy, almost like, yeah, we talk about Bruno here. We talk about Zephaniah here. You go, Zephaniah. You tell the world how God's going to punish it for its evil. You tell the world about how God's going to punish all the iniquity and all the sin of the world. You go, Zephaniah. And the people are cheering and they're proud and they're looking at the northern kingdom that's now been desolated and they say, see, just like them. See, we're still around because we're righteous. Our friends up in the north, our kindred up in the northern kingdom, they were wicked and God punished them, and God's going to punish all the other evil nations of the world, but we are the remnant of God's chosen people. We're the faithful remnant. We're still here and God is on our side. But then Zephaniah comes to verse 4, where God says, I will stretch out my hand against Judah and against all the inhabitants of Jerusalem. This is where the applause comes to an awkward stop. And they say, excuse me? They were all on board with God punishing the wicked, God punishing the evil tribes up in the northern kingdom. But us? God's going to punish us? Why? The people of Israel don't understand when the prophets bring this message of God is going to punish and discipline you. They're all like, what? Even though they're busy at their pagan altar and the prophet's like, hey, God's going to judge you. They're like, why? What am I doing wrong? They don't see their own sin. And again, this message of Zephaniah has less to do with the world, has less to do with what used to be the northern kingdom. Now God is saying, okay, southern kingdom, you've gotten arrogant. You've gotten arrogant thinking that you're so high and mighty because you haven't been overtaken by another nation yet. But I'm being gracious and patient with you because from time to time you show hints of godliness. But right now is not one of those times. So God's saying, I'm going to stretch out my hand against Judah, against all the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And he continues, and I will cut off from this place the remnant of Baal and the name of the idolatrous priest along with the priest, those who bow down on the roofs to the host of the heavens, those who bow down and swear to the Lord and yet swear by Milcom, those who have turned back from following the Lord, who do not seek the Lord or inquire of him. Baal, the pagan storm god, Milcom, the god of the Ammonite people. These gods are being worshipped by the people of God. And again, to kind of help us get a sense of the magnitude of this, think about the people in today's world who you would say, oh yeah, God's definitely going to punish them. God's definitely going to deal with them for everything they're doing, everything they're supporting, everything they stand for. God is going to deal with them. And suddenly God turns the finger and says, no, I'm talking about you. Us? We're the good guys. We're the faithful remnant. We're the ones who are holding fast to the truth. And God says, no, you're really not. Because look what's taking place among you. They are swearing by these gods. It says they are taking an oath. They're binding themselves to these gods. Again, these are the people of Israel. These are God's chosen people. Engaging in pagan worship, and we'll get into it later on, but not only are they engaging in pagan worship, which is more than just they're going to some pagan idol and lighting some incense or something. This is getting to the point where they are taking their own children and killing them on altars to the pagan gods. How do the people of Israel, God's chosen people, how do they get to that point? Verse 7, be silent before the Lord God, for the day of the Lord is near, and the Lord has prepared a sacrifice and consecrated his guests. And on the day of the Lord's sacrifice, I will punish the officials and the king's sons and all who array themselves in foreign attire. On that day, I will punish everyone who leaps over the threshold and those who fill their master's house with violence and fraud. I love how verse 7 starts. Be silent before the Lord. It sounds so nice. Even the King James puts it, hold thy peace. Isn't that just so, pleasant? Hold thy peace. The phrase literally used here is a command. To be blunt, it's God saying, shut up and listen. God doesn't want to hear them justify themselves. He doesn't want to hear them say, well, yeah, but we're not as bad as those people. It's like, no, shush. Listen to what I have to say. They're becoming defensive. They're assuming that what God is saying isn't about them, but about somebody else. They're hearing Zephaniah deliver this word of the Lord, saying how evil the people of Israel have become, how bad the people of Israel have become. And you can almost see yourself standing there in the center of Jerusalem, hearing this saying, yeah, Fred, are you listening? This is about you, Fred. God's like, no, it's about you. Don't look at Fred. Don't look at the other nations. Look at yourself. Now, this isn't God being angry because the people of Judah are imperfect. This is the people of Judah completely aligning their lives with pagan gods. And God is a jealous God. It says repeatedly in Scripture that He is a jealous God. Now, when we think of jealousy, we think of that as a negative aspect. We think of the jealous boyfriend or the jealous spouse, almost paranoid and doesn't want you talking to anybody else. Does God have a right to be jealous? Yes. He created us. He chose Israel and Judah. He chose the people of Israel to be His covenant people, not because they were spectacular, but because of His grace. And after all that He's done for them, they're now worshiping pagan gods. God has every right to say, whoa, 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 whoa. Back up. You're my covenant people. I'm Yahweh to you. I am the God of Israel. I have intervened on your behalf. Generation after generation after generation. And you're turning your backs on me. And I'm about at the end of my patience. God hates evil, and He doesn't just see the evil that's happening in all of these pagan nations around them. He sees the evil taking place in the heart of Judah, in the heart of Jerusalem. And the second thing we see here is that God's eyes see everything. God's eyes see everything, starting at verse 10. On that day, declares the Lord, a cry will be heard from the fish gate, which is the main northern gate of the city, a wail from the second quarter, which was a newer section of the city, kind of north of the temple, a loud crash from the hills. Wail, O inhabitants of the mortar, for all the traders are no more. All who weigh out silver are cut off. At that time I will search Jerusalem with lamps, and I will punish the men who are complacent, those who say in their hearts, the Lord will not do good, nor will He do ill. Notice the heart of Yahweh's complaint against Judah. At the heart of it comes this word, I will punish the men who are complacent. And the word for complacent here is a word that brings up imagery. The Hebrew language is beautiful in its imagery, and it talks about a glass of wine that's left on its lees. And basically what this is the dead yeast is just left sitting in the wine, and nothing is mixed up, nothing is activated. And after a little bit, it increases the intensity of the wine, but after too long, it just turns it bad. And God is saying, you've become complacent. You're just stagnant. Much like if you see a body of water, and in the middle of a river, there's just a pocket of the river where the water just doesn't move. It's just stuck there. And it begins to form algae and bacteria and all these other horrific things. Kind of like Lake Erie, I guess. No. Sorry. If you go to downtown Cleveland and look at Lake Erie, it's horrifying. But He's like, you become stagnant, complacent. It's not even just the worship of pagan gods. It's you've become comfortable with this. God says, you're okay with what's happening. You're not bothered by what's happening in your own midst. You're complacent, and I'm going to search the city of Jerusalem with a lamp. I see everything, I know everything, and nothing is going to be hidden from my sight. The fact that they're complacent brings up to my mind Revelation chapter 3, verses 15 and 16, where again, just like Zephaniah is bringing this word of the Lord to the Israelites, to the people of God, Revelation 3 is Jesus bringing a word to the church, to believers. In this case, Laodicea, and he says, I know your works. You are neither hot nor cold. Would that you were either hot or cold. So because you are lukewarm and neither hot nor cold, I will spit you out of my mouth. And sometimes we think of hot or cold as like Jesus wants us either passionate for him or just completely indifferent to him. He doesn't want us in the middle. But what Jesus is saying about Laodicea here is, he's saying, hey, Laodicea, I want you to look around your neighbors. I want you to look over to Hierapolis, who have these hot springs. And hot springs are good. Hot springs are wonderful for bathing, and hot water is good for cooking, and hot water is great for coffee. I probably didn't have it back then, but Hierapolis could have because of their hot water springs. But then over here they've got Colossae, and Colossae has these wonderful ice-cold, refreshing springs. Laodicea has nothing, and so there's this intricate aqueduct system from Laodicea to these other cities, and they kind of send some of that cold water down from Colossae. They pipe in some of that hot water from Hierapolis down into Laodicea. But the problem is, if you can imagine just this aqueduct system in the middle of basically desert, what happens to the hot water that's coming from Hierapolis? It's not so hot anymore. That ice-cold spring water from Colossae, it's not so cold anymore. And it gets to Laodicea, and it's just, ugh. Kind of like when people visit Laodicea, they're like, don't drink the water, it's horrible. And Jesus says, the neighbors around you, there's some good churches in the cities around you. Just like the cities around you have some great water supplies. But you, Laodicea, you're like your water. Disgusting. And I want to spit you out of my mouth. The same complaint about Laodicea is they'd become tepid. They'd become complacent, indifferent. He continues in verse 13. Their goods shall be plundered, and their houses laid waste. Though they build houses, they shall not inhabit them. Though they plant vineyards, they shall not drink wine from them. So beginning to say that everything that you work for, everything that you strive for, all of your industry is going to begin to shut down. Again, the key problem is this lukewarmness, the complacency. They're giving lip service to God, but their hearts are far from him. And we're going to see this reach a fever pitch when you get to the book of Malachi at the end of the Old Testament, the same problem. God is calling through Zephaniah the people of Judah, the people of Jerusalem, to a revival. To turn back to God with passion, to prioritize the worship of Yahweh once again. For Israel, the primary sin wasn't its idolatry. The enemy wasn't sin. The core problem was complacency. They just didn't care. And so they weren't overly concerned with a little pagan worship over here, a little idolatry over here. It just didn't bother them. And we saw that key phrase before, God's not going to do good, he's not going to do ill. God's just kind of up there asleep, and so we might as well be too. God's calling his people to revival, and his people's response is, we're fine. We don't need that. We're fine just as we are. And lastly, we see that God's justice will prevail. Verses 14 through 18. The great day of the Lord is near and hastening fast. The sound of the day of the Lord is bitter. The mighty man cries aloud there. A day of wrath is that day, a day of distress and anguish, a day of ruin and devastation, a day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and thick darkness, a day of trumpet blast and battle cry against the fortified cities and against the lofty battlements. I will bring distress on mankind so that they shall walk like the blind because they have sinned against the Lord. Their blood shall be poured out like dust and their flesh like dung. Neither their silver nor their gold shall be able to deliver them. Again, silver and gold and all of this stuff, for the Old Testament, this is the evidence of God's blessing. And they become reliant on the evidence of God's blessing and saying, I don't care how much stuff you have. My blessing will not be upon you. It says, on the day of the wrath of the Lord, in the fire of his jealousy, all the earth shall be consumed. For a full and sudden end he will make of all the inhabitants of the earth. God sees all, and he will deal with all. Unfortunately for the southern kingdom, it's not going to be too much longer until they also are overtaken. Which tells us that Zephaniah's word of prophecy from the Lord is going to fall on deaf ears. That ultimately the southern kingdom will suffer the same fate as the northern kingdom. And these people here, as they're listening to Zephaniah, are thinking, we're on the right side. We're the righteous ones. We're the chosen people. We're God's favorite in all the world. We're the faithful remnant. We're on the right side of God's justice. But God coming to them saying, no, you're not. It began with your complacency, with your lukewarmness, with your sense of, God's not active. We don't have to be active. We don't need this stuff. We don't need any of it. And as you look through the prophets, you begin to see just how far both the northern and the southern kingdoms go in terms of going against the covenant of God. Offering their own children on altars to pagan gods. They begin to take advantage of and neglect the poor and destitute among them. And God sees it all, and God is going to hold them all to account. If you'll notice in chapter 1, as Zephaniah brings these opening words of God's message to Judah, God's not interested in Judah fixing the world. God's concerned about Judah fixing Judah, about the people of Judah fixing their hearts before the Lord. To come back to this word that's been brought up a couple of times, and that is to seek the Lord again. To incline their hearts back to God. To awaken from their slumber, to awaken from their complacency, and to begin again to seek after God. And allow Yahweh to have his way in their lives again. And I can't help but wonder, as the evangelical church in America, we've become really good at kind of looking around the world saying, God's not going to tolerate this much longer. But the more news stories I see coming out of the evangelical world, I say, maybe we need to start looking in the mirror more. Because we're kind of a mess in-house. Maybe we need to look more amongst ourselves. Instead of applauding ourselves for being a faithful remnant, maybe we need to realize that maybe we're not quite as special as we thought. Because we have this false dichotomy that, well, the world is clearly evil, and so therefore that means we must be right. It's a logical fallacy because both could be in pretty bad shape. Have we become complacent? As a church, as a national and worldwide movement, have we become lazy and apathetic? Have we just said, you know what? I'm saved, I'm going to heaven when I die, that's all I care about? Have our hearts become apathetic to God? Apathetic to the things of God? This is what began the downfall of Israel, what begins the downfall of Judah. What's at the heart of the problem of the church at Laodicea in Revelation chapter 3. What about our own hearts? This morning, where's your heart with the Lord? When you think about your relationship with Jesus, how would you describe it? Do you think back to the glory days when your heart was so consumed with Jesus? But that was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. When you think about your heart just being just captivated by Jesus, are you talking in the past tense or the present tense? God continues to invite us as he's inviting the people of Judah. There's still time. There's still God calling out saying, I'm still here. I haven't left. Come back to me with all your heart. Maybe there's something from Zephaniah to the people of Judah that maybe we need to hear as well. Let's pray. Lord, I thank you that just as with